a brand new morning, rise up.
Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago right here on Tobago Updates. This morning we continue our interesting conversations by chatting with Dr. Denise Tsoiafatt-Angus, who is the political leader of the IDA. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Shenell. Good morning
It's
to
always a
our viewing and listening audience.
It's always a pleasure to have you in studio. You're always such a breath of fresh air. So I look forward to chatting with you this morning. Now, recently we've seen upsurge in crime on the island of Tobago like never before. I mean, you could say it's almost every week you're hearing of a criminal incident that is gun related. So we're seeing that there are more firearms on the island, or even if it's not more, we're seeing them being used more. What are your views on this recent surge?
It's quite unfortunate, but not unexpected. In some areas, you ask people, why did they get into a life of crime? And oftentimes it comes back to money, the economy, my pocket, unemployment, not feeling as if they've been tooled enough to get the jobs that they need to really supply and put food on their table in the family. And therefore, over the last 3 years, with the declining economy in Tobago, we are seeing where more and more of them are getting involved in crime. But it also is the fact that when your neighbor house on fire, wet your own. And we did not wet our house adequately and in sufficient time over the last, 7 years or so, to ensure that what was happening in Trinidad did not creep over in Tobago. But then we hear that it's not just in Tobago, it is also regional, that they are all interconnected now. So we have a situation on our hands, and definitely it is not a quick fix, and we have to look at a comprehensive approach to the issue.
The crime fighting strategy. Well, we saw that even the Prime Minister came to Tobago to have discussions in connection with a number of the stakeholders to devise effective strategies to combat crime. And even after that, we saw still steady murders occurring on the island. We saw even the new Minister for National Security, Minister Scotland, came to Tobago. And we're seeing that every time something happens, there's another news conference, there's another stakeholder engagement meeting, and there's more strategizing on how to combat crime. It's like every week, when something happens, you're hearing a new idea for a new strategy to combat crime. And you are saying that what is needed is a comprehensive approach to strategic crime fighting. But what is there to say that is not being done? We're seeing every week a news conference happening and strategies being put forth, but yet we are still seeing a surge in crime.
Yeah. So what we have is that we are putting a plan by VAPs instead of a plan using scientific data to guide the solutions. And once you do that, then you're being reactive in government and not understanding that you have to have the data, you have to look at the whole picture. And are we using everyone who we have access to in the country? I mean, on Thursday nights, we have a Tobago Legislative Series program, and we discuss all matters related to Tobago and where it impacts on a national level also. And last Thursday, we had Dr. Wendell Wallace, who is a criminologist, an attorney at law, an avid researcher, and also someone who is a lecturer at the University of the West Indies, and he's a criminologist. So he's written a slew of books on crime, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but across the region, well known. And best of all, he's from Castara.
Right.
Why aren't we calling on somebody like Dr. Wendell Wallace to work with the team and provide some of the research-based solutions to what we are seeing?
And during that conversation, what are some of those research-based
Right.
solutions that he would have hinted to?
So one of the what he says is that, we can't just be looking at intervention, which is what we are heavily into now. You have to look at prevention, you have to look at intervention, and you have to look at suppression. So even at the level of the judiciary, we need to be looking and reviewing the laws and the way they are practiced there, such that when somebody is locked up, in the next couple of days, they're out on bail, and has been repeatedly been happening. And they go back in, they come back out, they go back in, they come back out. So we really have to be looking at our suppression model. We have to be we're doing a lot in terms of intervention, but primarily we have to be looking at prevention. And when we talk about those three things, they're not just applied at the level of governance, because he says there's a micro level, which is the family, and in the family, you should be applying these three things. What am I doing to prevent my children from getting into a life of crime? What am I doing to intervene if I see them going the wrong way? What am I doing in terms of suppression? How do I punish them in a way such that I get them to go a different way? What are those tools that I'm using even within the family? At what he calls the meso level, you have the communities, and you apply the same model to communities, how communities practice prevention, how they practice intervention and suppression. And we're talking further, where are communities being given the resources, legislated, legal resources, so that they can really practice and intervene in a timely manner? Because I say children are not born. Criminals are not born. They are shaped by their environment. So you have to give the communities the resources for them to be able to identify along the way and treat with it the way they see it fit, the priorities in their areas. If they find there are a lot of footballers, or there persons who can go away, the community should be able to offer scholarship, not wait for someone to go and beg a politician to be told no, that you're not on the right side, so the child can't get a scholarship to go abroad, and make it like Dwight York. Many communities have said, we have children who are better than what Dwight York was when they were at his age, but they don't have the opportunity to go forward because there is a perception of political interference and gerrymandering. And then at the macro level, which is at the governance level, again, how are we practicing prevention? How are we intervening? And how are we, practicing suppression? And when you take that approach, when all of those things are operating at a 75% of positivity, that is when you begin to truly impact crime. But that cannot operate without honest and detailed data collection and analysis. We cannot practice defense collection such that the government doesn't look bad. It's time we start really having an independent way of collecting data where they are not, impacted or influenced in any way. Collect that data, do the analysis, and let us know. Collect the appropriate data. Timeliness is important, and that can better guide us as to where to put those programs in understanding. One community doesn't fit all.
Right. And when you talked a bit about the meso and the macro approach to fighting crime, you talked about ensuring that there is enough resources in the communities to do so. But when we look at the economic situation in Tobago, and, this administration continuously repeating the fact that, financial resources are limited, how is it that they are able to prioritize Tobago's development while also creating strategies and giving communities those tools to fight against crime and having those preventative mechanisms in place?
It's called priorities. When a mother is in a home and you're given a certain amount of resources, you may be determined that you can't pay for Netflix. There are some things that are called luxury items within your home, and when things are very tight, you determine those items go much lower on the list, and the resources that you would put to those items, you then put into food and shelter and education for your children. Okay, so all the other frills, maybe buying food outside, you decide to cook something at home to save your money, to save every penny. And so if we apply those principles at the level of governance right now, we wouldn't see the extent of travel that we are now seeing, and some of the other things that are not considered to be priority right now. Okay, you would spend the monies closer to home rather than having so many other contractors coming from Trinidad. You spend the money closer to home so that the economy directly benefits in Tobago. So there are things that they can do in terms of prioritizing the way we practice governance to find the resources to put elsewhere. And I want to say this, that the greatest need right now in terms of a career on the island should be social work and social work assistance. Okay, because social work needs to go in and do the assessment of families and communities. Let the police do their work, yes, but social work has to give us that data. We know that there are families who cannot adequately put food on the table. I've seen it. There are families that can't really send their children to school. And I really have to give kudos to those NGOs out there that are doing human service. How are we empowering the NGOs to do more? Okay, so again, it's prioritizing the spend on the island, how you're spending that money, and understanding what can create economic development on the island and put the resources there to stimulate the economy.
I'm glad that you said that. Now, we saw a large number of licensing officers come from Trinidad just 2 weeks ago, and they had a heavy presence on the island. So much so that a lot of persons, as we say in Tobago, would have been on their P's and their Q's. Do you think that that level of police presence, when done to focus on crime and criminal activities within the community, can have a similar impact?
Like I said, it has to be a comprehensive approach. So yes, and it was good to see that they actually got some guns and stuff. But again, their approach has to be balanced. Okay? When you are appearing to be punitive to your law-abiding citizens who don't have guns, who going about their business, who trying to make a penny to feed their families, and you shut them down with $5,000 in fines or all of these demerit points that maybe they may even lose their license and their opportunity to work for their families, what are we doing? You're creating criminals. So we need to, yes, the approach is necessary, but I think they needed to review to what extent that they're going in terms of, how they're affecting other people on the island.
So what do you think is a better approach to the licensing officers coming to Tobago to get that job done? What would you suggest?
No, they do their jobs, but you have to have some compassion while you're doing your job. How many warnings did they send out versus how many tickets?
Right.
And we all know, and I know for a fact, that it took over a week and a half to 2 weeks for some people to even get their cars certified. How many days away from their work to stand in line to be told, come back again, and they didn't even get to the point where they said, okay, these things are wrong.
Mhm.
It was standing in line, come back again, come back again. Finally, you get to the counter, they say, okay, these things you have to go and fix. Okay, so they also need to take responsibility for that process. How can they make that process more accessible and easier for people to deal with that, so that it doesn't affect persons' pockets, the amount of waiting time that people have had to wait. Imagine a taxi driver has to wait so many hours, you're losing work on the road, to be told, okay, come back tomorrow, come back next week, come back. And then you get there, and then there are things. So there is an opportunity for those who want to put a business. Get yourself certified and get a station in the east. Get yourself certified and get a station in the north, because we had all the cars converging in the west, and that really does not augur well. And that's when you talk about really planning for governance. You understand the challenges. You're not just dealing with the suppression or the punitive part of things, but you're looking at prevention. How can I make it more accessible for people to get their certificates in order?
Right. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up this morning's discussion, but it wouldn't be like me not to ask you, what can we look forward to seeing from you come this general election campaigning season that's coming on stream very soon?
Well, IDEA continues to prepare. We have not fully decided yet. We're looking at all factors, because we understand there may be very well about 6 different players on the playing field, with players coming from Trinidad, saying they're fielding candidates in Tobago.
Mhm.
So right now we are preparing for anything, and we are looking on and observing, because at the end of the day, Tobago must have the best opportunity to leverage those candidates, because it's not just about going up for a general election. It's not just about fielding candidates for general election. How does Tobago leverage those seats inside of the parliament? And I dare say that years and generations have gone by that we have not been able to do that. Okay, leveraging those seats. And perhaps it is time for us to begin thinking differently. I do believe that the constitutional changes that are necessary will assist us in that regard, to not just get greater autonomy for Tobago, but to have a bigger say in Parliament beyond just sending candidates from any side. To not just sit in Parliament, but get caught up in administration, such that they become silent along the way on Tobago's matters. And that has to change.
Thank you so much, Dr. Angus. It was a pleasure having a conversation with you this morning. Thank you for bringing forward those insights specifically on crime in Tobago. Now, unfortunately, we have to end the discussion here as I head over to the Pro Youth Convention over there in Shaw Park this morning. We are celebrating youth and everything youth development. So I look forward to seeing you there. But for now, we're going to wrap it up here this morning. And we want to thank you for your likes, your shares, and your comments, and all that you have been doing to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster. If you are a youth and you know a youth, come down to Shaw Park this morning at 10 a.m. Let's have a great time. Let's open up ourselves to opportunities to network and see what's really available in this space for true youth representation and development. See you there.